Hi there, welcome back to the Learn Scriptcase from Scratch video course. So we're still in part 4. This is the second video. We're going to look at forms today, how to develop forms. So as you can see, we've done all the setup, the database setup, the development environment, gotten familiar with that. Now we're learning to develop all the different types of applications. We just did grids, and now we're looking at how to do forms. So forms are pretty simple. They allow us to display data like grids, but this way we can edit data. You need to be able to edit data at some point. So forms in Scriptcase allow us to add data, edit data, copy data, and delete data. So let's go ahead and get started with developing forms in Scriptcase. Okay, so here we are in the Scriptcase development environment. We have that grid we set up. We're going to look at 3 different ways to create forms. The most basic way is to just create a form. So we're going to go to New Applications here. Go ahead and wait for that to load, and instead of grid, we're going to select a form this time. Select form, and we're going to select a table just like before. We have these different types of forms. We're going to look at those in a second, but for now we're just going to do a basic form. And we're going to select our instruments here. It's going to be associated with our grid instruments. There's our form instruments. We can edit the fields here. There's those field labels, field types and everything. And then the theme as well. You can do that with pretty much any application. But let's go ahead and click create on this, and we can start editing this form. So wait for it to load here. And we should have a form set up and ready to go. So as you can see, it has some different settings here, some of them similar to the grid, some of them new. Let's go ahead and run this to see what it looks like first before we get too deep into how this works. So wait for it to load and generate there, and then we can go ahead and go over to that form application. So there we go. There is our form with our fields and everything, so we can edit those fields. The ID field is a primary key, so we can't edit that. Our category is a drop-down. We're going to make that a lookup like we did on the grid. And then we can add a new record or save a record. So let's go back here to that form. Let's go to Edit Fields. We can again control which fields are shown on screen by dragging things down to the Fields Not Shown area. Category, as you can see, is a select field, but we're not quite displaying the correct value for that. So if we go and edit that field, we can edit this select statement. So we have some different options. We're using the select to, which is a nicer, newer select. So we're going to turn that on. Automatic lookup, as before, we have some default values here. And manual is going to be, if we do manual lookup, that'd be hard coding values. But we can create a select. It's going to be from the category table. ID is saved to the database, and name is shown on screen. The more human readable name is shown on screen. Let's go ahead and run this. And now we should have a nicer looking drop down with more human readable values. So wait for that to load, and then we can go ahead and go over to that form. And as you can see, we have our different categories there, which is more human readable, and it looks a little bit nicer. There's some more padding and spacing in that drop down as well. So that's how you do select statements, select lookups there for fields and forms, and how you create a form. So pretty simple, pretty easy to do in forms. So now let's go ahead and link this form to our grid application. So we created this grid instruments in the last video, and we're going to go ahead and link it. So we open that up for editing, and we can go over to the application links area here. So click on that, and then we need to select our application. So we need to create a new link. It's going to be an edit link. There's some different links, but we're going to worry about just edit links in this course. So that's linking to a form application so that you can edit data. We're going to select our form instruments right there. Go ahead and click next on that. And the ID is going to be passed through as the ID. So the ID on the grid is the same as the ID on the form since they're pointing at the same table. Go ahead and click confirm on that. Wait for that to load. And we have some different settings here to put a new row on the grid toolbar to edit it. And add new ones. We have some different options for display of that application. We can modify the form application from here and where the form is going to open it up. So we can do it in an iframe, in another window, in the same window, or in a modal. We're going to leave it to the default, hit save, and there is our link. So let's go ahead and run this. And now we should be able to click on a link here and go ahead and go to our form application from the grid. As you can see, we can do that. Click edit right there. And there we go, we can edit that form just like so. So we're going to look at some different ways to edit this form in a bit. For now, we're going to edit the display. We're going to go to settings, and we're going to make it take the entire screen up. So we can go to settings and change the table width to 100 and change the width unit to %, just like so. And then we can go ahead and run this. And now this is going to take up 100% of the viewport that it's given, depending on the device, whether it's a phone or a computer with a big screen or little screen. As you can see, it's taking up the whole screen there. So that's a little bit more of a modern look if you want to do that. So now let's look at another way to do this. We're going to go to New Application again. And this time we're going to select Grid, but we're going to create a form along with this grid. So we're going to do Instruments again, same table. It's going to do a new unique name for that, kind of _1. You can change that if you want, as long as it is unique. We're going to leave everything else the same, except we're going to select this option here to create a form with the grid. You can make this the default behavior whenever you create a grid if you want, but for now we're going to uncheck those boxes and hit save on that. We don't want it to be the default behavior, but maybe you do, so you can leave them selected. Go ahead and hit save, and then check that create form box again. There's the name of that form. We're going to leave it as is. You can change it if you want. Again, it has to be unique. And then everything should be ready to go, and we can go ahead and click create on this. So click create, and it's going to automatically create a grid there for us, as well as a form. It's going to generate the source for that form, so that form is ready to be run. So the source is generated, and if we go back here to the grid application and click application links, that link is already set up automatically to that form right there, form instruments, like so. That's linking to the grid instruments _1. So go ahead and run this, and it'll go and allow us to edit our form as well. So this is just another way to create a form application in conjunction with a grid application. So there's our grid. Click the edit button that was added to the grid, and it takes us to our form. We can go ahead and go back to our grid as well. So that's our second way to create a form application. Now there's one more way, and that's with batch applications. Batch applications allows us to create multiple applications at once. So we're going to go up to batch applications on the toolbar right there, right next to new applications. Click that. And here we can select all the tables for which we want to create applications. I'm going to select them all here, genre and category here. And actually I'm going to unselect instruments since we've created applications for that. And then as you can see, we can select a form and or a grid for each table. So for the support tables, category, genre, and media, I'm going to take the grid off of those. We're just going to do a form. We're going to do a special type of form with those. We're going to see that in a second. And the rest, I'm going to leave the form and the grid in place. So that should be ready to go. And then click next, where we'll be able to change some more settings. So as you can see, you can set the name for each of those applications, both forms and grids. You can set a description for those as well. And then for the forms, you can select the type of forms. So for those support applications, I'm going to make it an editable grid form. We'll see what that looks like in a bit. It's a very easy to use form that's very useful for us. So do that for those three support applications: media, genre, and category. And then we can generate the source or automatically edit it for now. But for now, we're going to leave that as is and go ahead and click next. And there are all those applications. Let's go ahead and open up this grid recordings here. And we check in on the application links here. And you see that it is set up to link to our form for the recordings automatically. So there's our form recordings right like so, already set up to work. We can click edit fields, and there's all those fields set up on screen with the labels and everything that we put in place. So you might have seen this done in the grid video if you saw this, but this is kind of how they do it with the form side. So you can go ahead and run that grid recordings, and it'll link us through to that grid. So we have no data yet. We're going to set that up in a second. So that's how that works. So now let's look at one of those special forms that we created as an editable grid. So let's go ahead and click on that to edit it. And as you can see here, it is an editable grid. So an editable grid it's going to look like a grid, but it's going to act like a form. So let's go ahead and run this so you can see what it looks like. That's probably the best way to explain it. So there it is. As you can see, we're editing multiple records at the same time, and we can add a new one here below. So this is very simple since we're editing just a few fields, just 2 fields really, and really we're only editing the name. And there's probably not going to be a ton of records for this. This way we can edit them all at once and save them individually or add new ones. So I'm going to add a record for brass, hit the check mark next to it, and there it is saved to the database as a new record. So that's what an editable grid is. So we created 3 of those. Very simple and very, very useful, extremely useful. And that way you only have to maintain one application if the application is simple enough. So that's for genre, media, and category. Now let's do some house cleaning and clean up our development environment. As you can see, I have a folder here with main, and that's going to contain all of our main applications. Then we're going to have our support applications or admin applications. So I create the new folder option, and then I'm going to call that administration. Click create on that. And I think for now, that's all the folders we're going to create, but we're going to create some new ones here soon. And then we have our root folder, which is where everything is. Now let's move these. So we're going to select these admin applications, category, genre, and media, and then go down to the bottom and select move, right like so. And then go ahead and click the option that we want. So we're going to move these to the administration folder, as you can see. So select administration there and go ahead and click move. And yes, we do in fact want to move them. Click OK on that. And then we should be ready to go. So now it's going to reload here and it's going to put all those in the administration folder. Now we can move the rest to the main folder. So select them all. To go down to the bottom, click move and choose our main folder right like so. And click move on that. And yes, we do in fact want to move them. Click OK again. And now it's going to come around and reload and show us actually no applications, just our 2 folders. Then we can go into those. So click into administration, there are those applications, and go into main, and there are those. So we're going to be using the folder system. This is just an abstraction. This is not actual file folders on the hard drive. So we can move them around as we want, and the links will all work. So now let's edit our recordings form and let's customize it just a little bit more. So this is a more complicated form. So we're going to make the layout a little bit easier to read. We're going to keep these name and ensemble fields up top, and then we're going to move the rest into another block. So here's our form recordings here. We're going to go to layout and blocks. So blocks are a way of grouping fields on the screen to make things a little bit more easy. So we have one block here, form recordings. That's where everything is. We're going to create a new block. And we're going to call this block about. So it's going to be the about block, like so. So the name is about and about block, and then the label is going to be about. So let me go ahead and type that in and click create then. Then we're going to change some settings on this block to make it look a little bit more unique. So we're going to display the title of the block. That's that label field about. So that's going to be displayed. And then the labels are going to be, for the field labels, are going to be displayed above the fields instead of next to the fields. That'll make it look a little bit cleaner. And then we have 4 fields that we're going to put in this. So we're going to put 2 columns so that we only have 2 rows with 2 items in each row. That'll split it up and make it look nice. And then the field position and the next value, all of that, the width. And then we're going to make it start closed so that it doesn't clutter up the screen. Hit save on that. Now that we have a block created, then we can go ahead and add fields to that block. So we're going to go back to edit fields. You can also do this in the field positioning option, but we're going to do this in edit fields. As you can see, we have our main block form recordings and our new block down below about with no fields in it. So we're going to drag those fields down to the new block here, the about block. Make sure we put them in the right order so that they're split up in the columns correctly. Release date, and then quantity as well. So those 4 fields are going to be in there in 2 columns. So now that's all set up and ready to go. We can go ahead and run this then, and it should be ready to go. So click run on the form and wait for it to load here. And then we can go there and it's going to look very different. As you can see, we have those 3 fields there still, and then we have the about block. 2 columns. So genre and media in the first row, and then release date and quantity in the next one. So that makes it look a little bit nicer. So I hope you can see that there's a lot of options here to customize the layout of your forms. We just kind of scraped the surface, but that's pretty good. And then we click add new, and there were those fields there in the add new form of the form, the version of the form. So now that that is set up, we can go ahead and do some validation here. So we want to decide which fields are required. We're going to require the name and ensemble, and we can do that just by checking the required box right here, and then quantity is not going to be required. This means when we try to add a record without these fields, or edit a record without these fields, it won't let us and it will display an error. Go ahead and run this now so we can see this behavior, and we can go over to the form then and try to do this. So we're going to do this in the add new mode. So click add new. And then if we go ahead and click add without putting anything in, it's going to display all these fields are required. And as you can see, those fields are highlighted in red, but quantity is not, since it is not required. So that's how you do some basic validation in Scriptcase, but we can do a little bit more. So let's make sure that we don't add any duplicate records. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to look at the name and the media type. And if they are both the same, if we can find a matching record of both of those fields in the database, then we know it's a duplicate record and we'll display an error and won't let them complete it. So to do that, we need to go to events here. So events, and we have a lot of different events here. And these are kind of in the order of execution from the beginning to the end. And we have some validation events and then the on after insert event. So these are the validation events. So on validate is just validating the fields, and validate failure is if it fails, and success if it does succeed. So we're going to do this actually on the after insert event. So there's the on validate event if we wanted to validate just the fields themselves, but this is just on the insert, not on the edit. So we're going to go ahead and go on the on before insert, not on the on after insert. So this is before it writes it to the database. Click on that on before insert event, right like so, and then we can put some code in there as we would expect. So there is some code. This is just PHP code. So I'm going to copy this in. I'm not going to get too far in the programming for this, but basically we're selecting the ID from recordings, where the name equals that name field and the media ID equals that media ID field. The curly braces allows us to pull the value out of the field. We're executing that, getting the result, and if there is a result, so if there is something there, then we know there was a duplicate and we can display the error message there, and that's going to stop the processing, that error message, so that it doesn't actually write the record to the database. Go ahead and run this, and now let's try and add a duplicate record. So here's this record. We're going to go ahead and copy this record. So we have these values, and we're not going to change anything about this data at first. So everything is the same. So this is in fact a duplicate here. So let's go ahead and click add, and we should get an error message. And yes, we did. Duplicate entry found. Please enter a unique name and media type. So now let's go ahead and change that media type. So this is the MP3 version of the album. Click add, and the new record was inserted successfully. So that's how you can do some custom validation with the events. Let's do another thing. Let's go ahead and add something so that the user can go ahead and check and make sure that there are no duplicates before they try to save it. So to do that, we're going to go to buttons and create a new button. We're going to put a button right on that top toolbar to check for duplicates. So click new button here. And there's a lot of different types of buttons. We're going to do an Ajax button. So that's not going to reload the form, but it is going to go back to the server and run some logic. So we can query the database like before, the check for duplicates. So we're going to name it check for duplicates. That's what's going to appear on the button. Go ahead and click create on that. And then once we do that, we have a lot of different options. So display mode is buttons. We're going to do a font awesome icon that's going to make it look a little bit nice. So we can put a little icon next to it. So I can search for a different type in CSS style. So there's our font awesome. Let's go ahead and type duplicate to see if we can find an icon. So there we have an icon there, the check for duplicates. So that kind of looks like a duplicate there. So that's what our button is going to look like. We can edit our CSS style, or the class there that we're going to use. So we can do check, and it looks like that. We might change that later on. And then some hints and confirmation message if we want that. We don't want to show this in the update mode, so we're going to select no, but we do want to show it in insert. Go ahead and hit save on that. And then we're going to go ahead and copy that code from the on before insert event, right like so. So let me go back to the on before insert, and we're going to grab this code and copy it. It's pretty close to what we want. So let's go ahead and copy it here and take it over to our check for duplicates event. So I've got it here. Go back to check for duplicates, our button, and we can add it in there in our code section. So wait for it to load here. It's taking just a few seconds here. There we go. So now we can copy it in the PHP code section of that button. And there it is. So now we just need to display a different type of message. So as you can see, I put some more code in here. This is the SE Ajax message. This is specific for Ajax events. Same message as before. If there is a duplicate found, it's going to be a toast message. So you can look at the Scriptcase documentation for more of this, but right now it's just an error message or a success message if there are no records found. So we're displaying a message either way. So generating code now, and wait for it to load. Now we can go over to that form application, and let's go ahead and copy this record just like before. And then we're going to use our button to check for duplicates here. And it should find a duplicate, so it's going to display an error message right up there to the top. And duplicate entry, so we need to enter a unique value. So let's go ahead and change the name value here to something different. Check for duplicates, and no duplicates found. So this is a unique record. So that's how you can use Ajax to validate some different events here to do that. Now we need to tell the form that there is a dependency on this media record, so that when we try to delete one of those media options, it tells us that there are recordings with those media. So here we are in the form media, and we need to add a dependency. And as you can see, there's our dependency there. It's going to be on the recordings table. There's going to be one field that's dependent on it. And we're going to link our ID on the media table to the media ID on the recordings table. So we add that. It's going to be a varchar on the ID of that, and then the media ID over here on the recordings table. And there's our error message. If someone tries to delete that record for which there is a dependency, go ahead and click save on that. And then we can determine what to do. So it can to roll it back so it doesn't actually delete the record, or we can have it cascade delete so it deletes both records in the media table and the recording table. So that's the least safe option. You might not want to do that unless you're really sure of what you're doing and you really have a lot of trust in your users to know what they're doing. But for now, we're going to leave it so it cannot be deleted. So they have to go delete the child's row first. Let's go ahead and run this form media, and we can wait for it to generate and then go over there. So now let's try to delete one of these records. And yes, we do want to delete it. And then it's going to check. And as you can see, we cannot delete this record. It has dependencies over in the recording table. So that's how you set up dependencies in forms. Now we're going to set up this media table as a nested grid over on our recordings table. So this is a nested form or master detail form. And this will allow our users to edit the values in the media table at the same time on the same screen. So we go to master detail over in the form recordings, click new detail. We're going to create a new block for this form to go into here. So that's going to be below our current block. We're going to call it media, and then label it media as well, though we're not going to display that. Go ahead and click create on that for now. And then we're going to link it to our form media. So here's all of our forms. Select form media here. And then go ahead and click next, and then we can select our foreign keys. So the ID on media is going to be linked to the ID over there. So the media ID here is going to be linked to the ID over on form media, just like so. That's how we're going to connect them. Go ahead and click next. And then confirm. There's no parameters associated with this. If we used a variable, there'd be parameters. But for now, just go ahead and click confirm. And now we should have a detail form there. So we have some different options here. If we want to display the insert or update or delete buttons, which we do, we can adjust the size of that iframe there. We're going to leave it to the defaults. It is going to be an editable grid. Partial pagination, all those different settings. We're going to go ahead and leave that as is. Go ahead and click save on that, and then we can run it here, and we should be able to see a master detail form associated with that. So wait for it to generate, and then we can go ahead and go access it, and there it is. So there's our master detail, our detail form right there. So we can edit our media type right there. So that it'll change the values in that drop down up in the about box, and we can add new media values too. And that will change those values there. So now we're going to take that label away since it's not really needed over there on the left. So let me show you how to do that. We're going to go over back to our development environment, go up to blocks, and we're going to find that block that was created when we added the master detail. So there it is, and uncheck the box to display the label since we don't want that. And then that should take that label away so it's a nice clean look. Go ahead and run it again. And it should take up less of the screen, which is what we want. We don't need that label there. And wait for it to generate, and then we can go over there. And as you can see, there's no label there on the left, so that's a much cleaner UI. So that's how you can edit forms and create forms in Scriptcase. So next, we're going to look at some different ways to create reports.